Hello and welcome back to another episode of HerStory, Unforgettable Women. Today we'll dive into the story of Dianne Fossey, the woman who tirelessly worked to protect the lives of the wild gorillas in Rwanda, and whose courage and passion have inspired countless conversationists after her. Her journey wasn't an easy one by any means, fueled by only her determination and pure love for these animals. So let's dive in. Born in San Francisco, California in 1932, Dian was very interested in animals from a very young age. At just 6 years old, she began horseback riding lessons. But when Dian enrolled in college courses, she chose to focus on business after encouragement from her stepfather. But that wasn't where she was meant to be. And during the summer break, after her freshman year of college, she went to work on a ranch in Montana. She fell in love with the animals at the ranch and started as a pre-veterinary student at the University of California, but later switched to pursuing a degree in occupational therapy at San Jose State College. Dian often dreamed of seeing the world and the wildlife, and after seeing photos and hearing stories from a friend who just traveled to Africa, she knew that she had to go there herself. It was this belief that started her long journey, and in 1963, she began planning her first trip. It took Dianne Fossey's entire life savings plus a bank loan to make her first trip to Africa a reality. During her tour, she visited Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, where she met Dr. Louis Leakey. This became a pivotal moment in her life and helped her achieve her dreams time and time again. At Olduvai, Leakey granted Dian permission to explore some newly excavated sites. In her excitement, she slipped down a steep slope, fracturing her ankle. This would have discouraged anyone, but she was more resolved than ever to get to those gorillas. When Dian finally encountered a gorilla group in Congo, she observed and photographed them, realizing that she had to return to study these magnificent creatures. Once back in Kentucky, Dian worked at Kosser Children's Hospital. When a lecture tour brought Dr. Leakey to Louisville, she showed him the photos she took on her trip. After their talk, Leakey asked Dian if she'd be interested in leading a long-term project to study gorillas in Africa. But he told Dian that if she were to follow through, she'd first have to have her appendix removed. It was a sign of her strong determination that she did exactly that, only to later find out that his suggestion was his way of gauging her will. In December 1966, Dian returned to Africa. She started her journey to the Congo in an old Land Rover named Lily, gifted to her by Dr. Leakey. Slowly, Dian adapted to her new life. Her living space was small, as she had to make do with a small 7 by 10 foot tent that served as her bedroom, her bathroom, office, and even a place to dry her clothes. SANWEKWE, an experienced gorilla tracker, proved invaluable as a partner. At first, the gorillas used to run away when they saw her, but she gained their acceptance over time. Dian imitated the gorillas' regular activities such as scratching, feeding, and mimicking their contentment vocalizations. Dian observed the gorillas closely and learned to identify them by their individual nose prints. These are the patterns of wrinkles on their noses, and they're unique to each gorilla. She sketched the gorillas and their nose prints from a distance, learning a lot from their behavior and keeping daily records. Dian worked tirelessly every day until the political situation in Congo got worse. On July 9, 1967, as she and SANWEKWE returned to camp, they saw armed soldiers waiting for them. Due to a rebellion in the Kivu province, the soldiers were there to escort her safely down the mountain. After spending 2 weeks in Rumangabo under military guard, Dian made an escape plan. She offered the guards money to take her to Kisoro, Uganda, so she could properly register her Land Rover and then return. The guards agreed to the deal, but once in Kisoro, Dian immediately sought help from the Ugandan military at the Travelers Rest Hotel. The soldiers were arrested, and she was finally safe. She was then interrogated and warned not to return to Congo, finally being allowed to go back to Nairobi, where she met Dr. Leakey. But she decided that she was going to keep going, no matter what. So it was in 1967 that Dianne Fossey established what she named the KARISOKE Research Center in Rwanda. But it wasn't an easy feat. She faced many challenges, like how she spoke Swahili and the men she hired only spoke Kinyarwanda. Slowly, and with the help of hand gestures and facial expressions, they learned to communicate. The biggest challenge, though, came from the animals themselves. It was gaining acceptance from the gorillas for close research, as they were naturally shy and afraid of humans. At KARISOKE, Dian depended on the gorilla's natural curiosity and the habituation process. While walking or standing upright increased their anxiety, she was able to get close when she knuckle walked. She'd also chew on celery when she was near the groups to draw them even closer to her. Through this process in 1968, she managed to partially habituate 4 groups of gorillas. In the same year, Bob Campbell from the National Geographic Society was sent to photograph her work. His photos of Fossey among the mountain gorillas launched her into fame, forever changing the image of gorillas from dangerous beasts to gentle beings. Dian never felt up to the scientific aspects of the observations because she didn't have adequate academic qualifications, so she enrolled in the Department of Animal Behavior at Darwin College, Cambridge in 1970. Till 1974, Dian traveled back and forth between Cambridge and Africa until she completed her PhD. Armed with the degree, she could now be taken more seriously. It also improved her ability to secure more funding, but even with these achievements, she knew trouble was coming. The threats gorillas faced from poachers and cattle herders were too big as they got caught in traps meant for other animals. But Dian wasn't going to sit idle and instead fought back through some unorthodox methods, wearing masks to scare them, burning snares, spray painting cattle to discourage herders from bringing them into the park, and even taking on poachers directly. Only 254 gorillas were left in the wild in the mid-1980s, so Dian looked towards active conservation work. She was convinced that without immediate action, long-term conservation goals would be useless since there would be nothing left to save. Things seemed too bleak. She even used her own money to support the purchase of boots, uniforms, and food for park wardens. But this initiative led to the formation of the first anti-poaching patrols that protected the gorillas in the research area. After years on the field, Dian became close to many gorillas she studied, but there was one that was special to her, Digit. She met him in 1967 when he was about 5 years old and living in her study group 4. He had a damaged finger on his right hand, which is where his name came from. Digit was very curious but had no playmates his age in his group, so he was drawn to Dian and the two became close friends. But tragedy struck in December 1977 when Digit was killed by poachers. He died trying to defend his group, which helped them escape. Dian and the world were heartbroken. Digit had gained fame through a photo shoot with Bob Campbell and was considered the official representative of the park's mountain gorillas. After his death, Dian saw an opportunity to use his popularity to raise awareness and gain support for gorilla conservation. She established the Digit Fund to raise money for her active conservation and anti-poaching initiatives, and the Digit Fund would later be renamed the Dianne Fossey Gorilla Fund. The patron for these animals began writing her book, Gorillas in the Mist, and later moved to Ithaca, New York, to work as a visiting associate professor at Cornell University in 1980. The book was so well received that it was later turned into a movie of the same name. It came out in 1988 with Sigourney Weaver playing Dianne Fossey. Dian returned to Rwanda, but in a shocking turn of events, she was murdered a few weeks before her 54th birthday. There was evidence of forced entry, but no signs that robbery had been the motive, and even today, the case has never been fully resolved. She lies in the graveyard behind her cabin in KARISOKE, next to her beloved Digit. It's safe to say that Dian did a lot to heal the perception of these gentle creatures. Not just that, she also saved the species from extinction. With movies like King Kong adding fear and uncertainty into the mix, she knew that she had to prove everyone wrong. In the countless hours she spent with gorillas, she didn't experience even 5 minutes of aggressive behavior toward a human. Her legacy and the significance of her work live on even now. KARISOKE is now the longest-running gorilla research program as it continues its patrons' work, run by the Dianne Fossey Gorilla Fund. Thank you for watching! If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more exciting HerStory content just like this.